Okay, we are going to have an incredible evening tonight. I'm going to get right to introducing our guests because we have so much to cover. So, Ferenc Laczko is a talent agent at SBV Talent, one of the industry's leading talent agencies representing celebrity, voiceover, and on-camera actors led by Rita Vennari. Ferenc's areas of specialties include commercial, interactive, and animation voiceover. Ferenc has had the privilege of working with Hollywood's most acclaimed talent on numerous high-profile commercial, film, television, and interactive projects for studios such as Disney, Lucasfilm, Fox, Nickelodeon, Activision, Electronic Arts, Blizzard, and Cartoon Network, as well as many, many commercial accounts. Ferenc strongly believes that something awesome happens when artists perform in their element with passion and authenticity. And our second guest is Larry Riess. Native to the Los Angeles area, Larry has been working in the voiceover industry for over 25 years. First as a recording engineer, then as a casting director, and now as an associate at Arlene Thornton and Associates. Larry shares the way in which media is consumed is always evolving and trends are always changing. It's up to us as an agency to be aware of shifting tides so that we may service our clients as effectively as possible. It's a business about people, connecting with them, understanding them, and helping them. Please help me welcome Ferenc and Larry. Hello, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having us. Thank you all for being here. I know it's the holiday season.
This is a great audience, great.
Yeah.
So let's dive right in. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a voiceover agent and what you love about voiceover?
Sure. I came to agenting first as a recording engineer. I went to a trade school to be an engineer, and I figured I'd work in music, but fell into voiceover classes. And that was in 1993. I worked for a casting company in Los Angeles from 1994 to 2004 and switched over to Arlene Thornton and Associates in 2004. Initially starting working as a booth director, working with talent, and eventually moving my way onto the desk, taking avails and bookings and sending out suggestions and doing everything else that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Great.
I actually started my career interning at Fox 2000, the late Fox 2000 with Elizabeth Gabler, and it was an amazing experience. And they were like, if you ever want to work in the entertainment industry, you need to go work at a talent agency. So I decided that I would join the mailroom. That's pretty much where everyone starts in the talent agency business. So I was hired at Abrams Artists, and I floated around a bunch of desks, and voiceover was one of the most interesting ones because, you know, talent was coming in and recording, and you wore multiple hats as a voiceover agent. You're not just, you know, on the phone making those calls. You're actually casting projects. I use that word, casting, not in the sense of like how CSAs cast, but you know, and it was just a very interesting, lively process. So, you know, from there I moved to another agency. I followed one of my bosses, and she was starting a voiceover department. And so, you know, about a year into it, it looked like, you know, she was not passionate about it as much anymore. And I became an agent. I was 23 years old. I was very naive, to say the least. But fast forward 10 years, you know, through different agency transitions, I've been at SBV now for 5 years. So, and I just love working with actors. I think it's just one of the most rewarding experiences you can have is working with actors and procuring opportunities for them and all that fun stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, Larry, I want to talk just briefly about your booth director experience. Can you tell us exactly what a booth director does and also how that has informed your work as an agent?
Well, sure. As a booth director, they're in the booth with, sometimes if I was working at a casting director. I remember the first audition I ever directed. It was a Taco Bell spot. There was a tie-in for the Godzilla movie of the time. It was maybe
Naturally.
1997 or so.
Right.
And it was a lady at the drive-through window, a young lady, and Godzilla is smashing through New York, and he comes up to the drive-through and orders some Taco Bell. And so basically we get the script. There'll be a cast of maybe 10, 15 people coming in. They come in 10 or 15 minute increments. They've had their copy ahead of time. And typically, as a booth director, I'll ask them to, you know, show me what you got. Do your first take before you cloud their judgment with any ideas that you might have, see where their instincts are going, and then maybe offer a little adjustment based on whatever they're looking for in the spec.
Great.
And then you're off and running.
And when your clients come in and do auditions at the agency,
That's a different process.
It's a different
So we
process.
get scripts from a million different sources. However we get them, we will send the script in an email format out to our client ahead of time and ask them to either record from their booth at home or call to schedule to come in.
do you have a preference?
We don't have a preference. I
Okay.
mean, the actors have a preference. A lot of them like to come into the booth.
Yep.
Sometimes our booths are all filled up and we don't have the space to accommodate them. One thing we've started doing in the last year is offering Source Connect now to our clients. So if they download this free software in their booth, they can call into us and we'll direct them real time. They don't have to be in our booth, they can be at their home
Cool.
studio. We're recording it on our side. Then we have to do the cleanup and the editing in that instance, which otherwise would be left to the talent to take care of before sending to us.
Yep.
But if it helps to get a better performance, we're all for that. So.
Cool. And will you, once you receive the audition, will you maybe send it back and give feedback? Do you always just take the first take? How does that work for you guys?
We definitely scrutinize and listen to every audition that comes in, be
Great.
it through inside the booth or something that's recorded remotely, because we have to quality control. Maybe
Sure.
they missed pronunciation on a word, or maybe they missed a joke, or
Yeah.
maybe there's something happening in between the lines, like an effort or something like that, and that can really help bring a script to life when you're getting all the nuances besides just the written word. So yeah, we do. We listen to everything, and every day we're calling up somebody and saying, you need to redo this. The one thing that I think more than anything that we're calling up people and asking them to redo is naming conventions, slating conventions. We get our auditions from myriad different sources, and in the last few years it seems like everybody wants their stuff back a certain way. So when we send out our auditions, we're very mindful and we put it in big red caps. You need to slate accordingly, you need to label the file accordingly. And when our talent doesn't listen, we have to fix it if we can ourselves or have them redo it. And with tight turnarounds, sometimes there just isn't enough time for that. So it's really important that our clients, we beat it into them, that they read very carefully all the instructions and all the auditions that are going out to them.
So excited about the audition, they forget to read the instructions. How does it work at SBV?
I think it works similarly
Yep.
to how every agency does it.
You guys have a booth as well?
We do. We have a booth, and clients are coming in and recording. Just with the way it is these days, a lot of people are recording at home because they just don't have time to come into the booth. It's just there's commercial auditions, on-camera commercial auditions, theatrical auditions. So we're actually finding more and more people are recording at home these days versus actually coming in the booths.
And the technology is such that you can get a decent recording system at
just
home.
gonna ask
It's not
you.
too absorbent in terms of cost.
So do you guys have a specific setup that you like for your roster to have, or is it just kind of you want it to sound good and however that happens, cool?
That is a great question. Yes, I do not. The specifications I feel like change by the time I learn what exactly it's supposed to
Right.
be and what microphone you're supposed to get. It's already been like, this is the next. It's kind of like buying a MacBook. They just always are changing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's a really one thing that I'll tell you all. One solid piece of advice right at the bat is audio quality, audio quality, audio quality. Because if your audition sounds like you're recording at the bathroom at Dodger Stadium, guess what? It's not going. It's not going to go. It's going to stay with your agent because there's just no way that a casting director can send that on to their producer and call it like quality work. It just isn't. You could have the best read possible, but if it's echoey and grainy and just sounds like, again, you're recording somewhere, wherever, it just can't go. It just can't go.
The problem is that it gets in the way of the performance.
Right.
Yeah. It's too distracting.
Which kind of brings me to my next question. So you send out an audition, let's say, to 15 people on your roster. Does everybody get sent through?
Well, there is a trend now with the cast directors that we can only send, they'll limit us, our top 10, our top 5, our top 8, whatever. So, when it comes to those situations, it's kind of like, oh my God, what's that movie? Sophie's Choice. That's it's so hard. But you have to be a very sort of non-partisan. That's the wrong word, but you have to be non-biased kind of listener and just like who is the best person, who in your professional opinion is going to book this job. And that's just how it, unfortunately, obviously if I feel very passionate about someone's read and I'm like, they need to listen to this because this is the one I feel strongly, I will blast through those rules anytime. But for the most, there is that trend that is out there with the animation too. It's like top 5, top 10, all that.
Yeah.
We've noticed submission limit requests more frequently too. In commercial casting houses, submit only your 3 best for this project, we'll pick who we want to see. When it's in-house, we operate much the same way that Ferenc does. We'll record whoever's right for it and then, whittle it down because we do have to honor the casting director's request. There have been instances where we've got, we just have one extra person, and we'll call and we'll beg and plead, will you submit, can we submit one more? And in most instances, they'll say yes. In a few instances, we've heard, don't submit any extra or we won't listen to any of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, brutal.
Brutal.
So when I was doing a bit of research, I saw on the SBV site, and I don't know if this is still current, are you the only male agent at SBV?
I am the only male agent at SBV. Yes, I am. But I just, it's funny, and I've worked at other agencies too. So, I don't necessarily, I just don't see to me, we all sit in, Rita Vennari is the head of our agency. We all sit in one big room, and we have that open office environment that's so trendy these days. But it actually does work to our benefit because, the promo agents are working on somebody who's going to be in New York next week. And, I have a New York cast director that this person should meet while she's there. So I will put in the call. And those are things that you wouldn't have heard if you weren't sitting in like an open office environment and things like that. So, it's actually it's part of being, the best team ever. So
I love that.
Yeah.
The best team ever.
Yes.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about your talent and kind of what attracts you to talent. What attracts you to the voice? Is there anything specific? Is it an amazing demo reel? Is it a specific tonality? Is it a hole in your roster? Is it all of the above?
Could be any of those things.
Yeah.
I think above and beyond it is talent. We're looking for actors, those that can convey the truth of an emotion, whatever that may be. Certainly, certain times we are trying to fill holes in our roster. We just lost our best sportscaster. We need to get another sportscaster.
Right.
But by and large, we're looking for talent, Diversity is certainly something that is to be mindful of because the way that castings are coming down, they're looking for a much broader range of talent. So we do need to try to fill holes occasionally that we don't have, But basically, it comes down to what the person brings to the party. When you're taking a meeting with a prospective agent, don't be afraid to be yourself. Show a little bit of yourself, warts and all. Laugh, be nervous, express. Because when you start to open up to somebody, then they will see, I can use this person. I can see them doing this. So it helps us in terms of learning who a particular talent's signature is, what their signature is, the more they are open.
I think that's such a great point. And both of you in your bios mentioned something about bringing your authenticity and passion into your performances and how important that is. And I think as actors and the idea of pitching yourself to an agent and obviously you want that relationship to happen, sometimes we lose that part of ourselves for wanting to be whatever it is that you guys might be looking for, and I think that that's a trap that we all fall into.
For sure. I mean, it's show business, so there's a business component to this, and that's not questionable. It's are you trained? Are you studying with the casting directors that are in town? Have you taken the workshops? What's your body of work already? There's those sort of things that need to be in place and in lock.
What's your availability?
Then there's the show part of it, which is, I think the kind of glamorous side of it, maybe a little more the passion, the connectivity, the vibe. When you see somebody perform, a Broadway show, and you see them, debut the first time, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm just in awe of what you can do. Like that, literally talking about it gives me goosebumps. So there's that sort of component to it where you're watching you guys in your element doing your thing that you love. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But there is a business side to it. And, not unfortunately, I mean, that's a side of it that, that's in your control that you can actually get in there and do and work on. And I don't know that everyone has the is doing that necessarily. You know, that it can't just always be all about the show, because as much as, you know, you wish you could discover it on Hollywood Boulevard, sometimes it just doesn't happen that way, and you got to have the business principles in lock.
I was talking to an actor recently, and they said, boy, you know, 20 years ago, I just had to show up and act. And now there's the advent of technology and self-promotion and social media.
Social media. Let's talk about that, since we were talking about it a little bit in the green room as well. So how important is social media now? Having a social media presence as an artist, and does casting and do producers want that?
So in my experience, specifically with the animation, it's very important. They are looking for large followings for publicity reasons. You know, it helps push the show forward. If someone has 2.2 million Twitter followers, they're like, wow, that's a big audience we get to engage with. So it is necessary. There's a flip side. In the interactive world and in the commercial world, they don't want you posting anything about what you just did and what you did, you know. So it's kind of, you have to navigate that balance of, okay, I have to have a lot of followers because if you're pursuing animation, if that's your, you know, if that's where you want to go in your career, you do, you know, having a sizable social media following is helpful. If you're wanting to do, you know, promo commercial, then I would say it's probably not as vital.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree, exactly, yeah. With animation, a lot of it is geared towards a youthful audience, and the upcoming generations, they're so immersed in social media, so that's why they direct it. Even with a primetime animation, they sometimes are keen on having a social media following their clients that they're submitting. In the interactive world, I would absolutely agree with Ferenc that more often than not, they want you to stay off of it until the game is released.
Right.
These production companies and video game development companies have social media teams that sit there scouring the internet looking for leaks. And we've had occasions of getting a call, you need to have a talk with your client and they will be contacted by a lawyer. So it's important to know how to navigate
Respect
social
NDAs.
Media. Absolutely.
Respect
And I would go one farther.
NDA.
Respecting NDAs is so important. With every piece of copy that we send out, even if there isn't an NDA to go with it, we tell our clients, don't share it with anybody. Don't take it to your acting coach and have them help you out. If you need help with directing, come into our booth. And we've even had instances, because there's a couple of recording studios and casting facilities around town that will offer the use of their booth for a nominal fee, $10 for 15 minutes, and you can go record your auditions there. We do not allow our talent to do that either because we just don't want it getting out.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah.
I feel like both of those things are like actor merch.
Maybe.
Lips sink
We're going to make
ships
t-shirts after this.
and respect the NDA.
Respect the NDA.
I love
yes,
that.
we're going to be merchandising
I
that.
love that. Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about your rosters. Once you sign somebody, what are your expectations of your roster? You talked a little bit about classes and workshops. Do you talk to your roster about that? Do you expect them to be current on stuff? Do you ask them to research stuff? What, if anything, and their demo reels and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, I think of it as like gym, you know, working out.
Yeah.
You got to constantly working on your craft and keeping up with the trends, because the trends will shift, and they shift like right before your eyes, and you're like, wait a minute, when did this happen? Like, when is, you know, we see the non-announcer spec like on everything.
What's that?
Non-announcer. I mean, it's, you know, you're conversational, you're talking to one person. You're not
at somebody.
Right, you're not salesy and slick. It's much more relatable. So, you know, we try to definitely make sure that we keep the lines of communication open. Your relationship with your agent, I always think, and this is just my preference because of how I've developed working through the years, is having more of a collaborative mindset. Like, okay, we're a team. Like, I am your agent, and together, how are we going to do this? How are we going to navigate the challenges of this industry? Because not everything is peachy and beautiful all the time. I wish it were. There are going to be obstacles in your career, and there are going to be instances where you don't see eye to eye with your agent. And how are you going to work through those conversations and be able to have a very good working relationship? So communication is extremely important. I mean, one of my pet peeves is you know, where is this person's audition? Where is this person's audition? You know, don't make me send the mob after you. You know, you know, if you're gonna pass on an audition, let us know. You know, it's totally fine. You could be working on Shameless for a week and it's a super intense shoot and you just don't have time to get to this voiceover audition, that's fine. Let us know. Pass. That's totally okay. I'm happy working on Shameless because you know what? I get to tell the buyer, hey, so-and-so's working on Shameless. And oh my God, I love that show. Yeah. And you build the relationship that way. So keeping the lines of communication open are extremely, I think that's one of the biggest things about.
Yeah, we certainly don't begrudge our talent getting work in other arenas, but bookouts are so important. Even if it's only for a hair appointment for 2 hours out of the day, inadvertently, that's going to be the 2 hours where a casting director is going to want you to go to their place. And if you can't go to their place, then we might potentially be losing that audition slot for our entire company. Like I said earlier, a casting director says, give us your 3 best. They pick one of those 3 best, and then that person can't make it, we might not get to retain that time. To go back to what you said a minute ago, though, when we sign on a new client, maybe it depends to a certain degree where they are in their own career. Sometimes we'll sign on a child talent who doesn't have much experience, and we'll send them to training or suggest that we'll give them a few different options of places. We don't recommend only one place. We give them options, and then go find out for yourself. Build a rapport with somebody. But as an actor in general, like Ferenc said, we promote training or even just a workout group. As an actor, there's no destination. You're never going to arrive. It's about the journey and everything that happens along the way. So that's a continual thing, I think.
Put that on the shirt too.
I know. We're just racking it up here. I love it. So we touched on it a little bit in terms of diversity, but what other trends are you seeing in the non-announcer? What other trends are you seeing in the industry right now that are changing that might be helpful for us to stay on top of?
Great question. I've seen some of that ASMR stuff come through, and I'm like, okay, this is a new thing. There was a Super Bowl spot that I'm sure you guys are. It was I forgot who did it. I think Zoe Kravitz did it. But that was. So you kind of see those. I mean, you do see a lot of the spoken word kind of stuff flash through. I'm trying to think if there's any other that jump at my mind.
Can you explain for I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you explain for folks who may not know what spoken word is?
Yes. So that's sort of like that, like poem kind of. I'm not going to do it justice explaining it, but
it's like a slam poetry.
Yeah, slam poetry, like that sort of poetic. Narrative kind of thing. So, a lot of it really is they do want to hear just authentic, one-on-one. I mean, I know that sounds very cliched, but it's almost like, if you're going to make a commercial voiceover demo these days, I almost say do have a spot on there that has like no music or very little music because overproduced is not the way it's going. It's the opposite of that. So
I think that's great information for everybody to know.
It certainly is. You never want the production to overshadow the performance of the talent,
Exactly. Like if I hear your demo and it's like car alarms and and it's
chickens.
It's like what is going on here,
Yeah.
That just makes me think that there's something, like you're not want to show your voice, you're showing the sound effects or something. I don't know.
We talked a little bit about this when we did a 2 in the Solo Booth with Sarah Sherman, which I told you about, but one of the questions was about demo reels. Let's talk about that just for a moment. Someone wanted to know what the thoughts were behind a self-produced demo reel, and why is that not a good idea? Or why is it a good idea?
I don't think it's a good idea, personally, just because I think you need someone to bounce off of. And, part of what I do and what I love doing is working with our clients on their demos to make sure, we're on the same page. Not only does it help us see where they're at in their career and kind of what they can do, it's a very sort of eye-opening process, can be. Because you're like, wow, I didn't expect, that, I didn't expect that sound out, or I didn't expect that read out of you. So, bouncing it off of someone is so helpful. And I mean, unless you're a brilliant editor and you have the ear for it and your agent's willing to give you notes. I mean, I have done that in the past too, but for the most part, you do want to seek the help of a professional that's going to be able to guide you. And I get a demo that's like commercial demo that's like 3 minutes long. I'm like, so we're already off on the wrong foot here, because they should only be about like a minute 15, minute 10,
Right.
those kind of things.
And
so.
do you suggest that obviously a commercial demo is its own entity? Does animation and interactive need to be two separate demos, or can they be combined? Is that still a thing?
You can almost call that a character demo
nowadays.
Character demo. Okay, great.
Exactly.
Good.
See, we're on the same page.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And then a promo demo if you're going in that direction.
Yes.
Separate ball of wax.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You absolutely, if you're coming to us and you're like, I want to get into animation, but here's my promo demo. I'm like, what?
Right.
Like that's a misfire there. You if you're actively pursuing promo, you need to have a promo demo. If you're commercial I think is the base.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think everybody needs to have a commercial.
By virtue
voice.
of the amount of opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
So having that, but if you're pursuing commercial opportunities, I would expect that you would have a commercial voiceover demo.
Great.
I really appreciate what Ferenc said in terms of working with his clients on their demos, and that's great. If you have the benefit of having representation, then your agent certainly should do that. There's two main points of having a commercial demo. The first one being to obtain agency representation, and then after you have that, then your agent will use it as a marketing tool to try to get you out to casting places. So if you don't yet have the benefit of an agent to help you stay on the right path, and you maybe it's a fiscal matter as well, I would say it is important to have a producer to help you with your demo, but you can help them along the way in terms of starting to curate material for your own demo. Think about who you are. Are you a father? Are you a cowboy? Do you like gemstones? Whatever the case is, you can tailor stuff like that to who you are, and then it's going to ultimately, hopefully, result in a more effective demo that captures who you are, your essence.
Great. I'm going to start moving towards some questions that our audience has. So in terms of submissions and getting to know you guys, do you take blind submissions? Do you prefer referrals? And how do you usually discover new talent on your roster?
So I am very much referral based. Honestly, we just get inundated with emails and I especially question the ones that are coming towards like this. Like I literally have gotten a few even today, and I'm like, it is December, 18th.
Right.
My mind is like thinking about where I'm going to be for the holidays. So I think that's a pretty bold move, but a lot of it, if you are going to submit blindly, is timing. It's like
Indeed.
Monday at 9:30, not a great time because I'm usually like haven't had my coffee yet and I'm grumpy, and so you really got to plan out when a good time when an agent would be at a more open-minded kind of juncture to.
And when is that namaste moment?
Yes, exactly. That's a good question.
It really
That's
is.
a touche. Honestly, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's really
Midweek.
Midweek. Think about that. I've literally gotten them at like 8:30 at night. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want to see this right now.
Yeah.
So finding the kind of the optimal window for that.
Sure.
A referral, even better. Especially if it's a casting referral. If I have a cast director calling me being like, you need to meet with this person, they are sensational. I'm like, okay, great, let's make it happen.
Nice.
Again, with the blind submissions, it's just not, we do take them obviously. But I like going to comedy shows a lot too, Groundlings, UCB, seeing who's out there. I've met some incredibly talented people that way. And I love it. I love seeing them in their, seeing you guys in your element. I think that's just a really, again, I go back to that because it's just one of the most rewarding parts of this job.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much my main avenues.
Good.
I would agree with Ferenc. I think that referrals carry more weight. We accept open submissions. We're not taking any meetings until the new year just because we're winding everything down.
Right.
So they go into a folder and we address them on our downtime when we can. But if something comes from a talent that we already represent, it'll carry a little more weight. And certainly if something comes from a casting director who's already hired that person, then we're going to take the time to meet with them. I mentioned we were in the back room that we scrutinize that the submissions that are referred through our talent. And we say, well, did you listen to this yourself?
Yeah, I love that
we
you
had
said
we had
that.
a submission not too long ago, and the first spot on the demo was a spot that I recognized from being an engineer in voiceover classes in the early 90s. so it shouldn't have been on there. It's just
Yeah.
an old spot. It's played. It's been all around town, and unfortunately, that person didn't have somebody in their corner to say you shouldn't do that. But we do listen to them. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Going off of what Larry said too, that's one of my other things about your commercial voiceover demo. Don't put a Mercedes-Benz spot on there because the voice of Mercedes-Benz is John Hamm. So the minute I hear a Mercedes-Benz spot on your demo, I go, okay, so that's not a real spot.
Yeah.
So then I start critiquing well, how many of these spots are real?
What you're going for is the suspension of disbelief. We want to think they're all real.
Right, exactly. Ideally, you want your demo to be all real spots in a perfect world. So that's sort of so this John Hamm's the voice of Mercedes, so you're not the voice of Mercedes. So okay, so what other spots on this demo aren't real? And then you're off point,
Yeah.
And you only have really those 30 seconds, Really, it's just that crazy. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in today's age where we're just so inundated and saturated with digital content in general, our attention span, you have to hit a home run right out of the gate.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been on the phone with cast directors listening to demos. It's the first 5 seconds, then they skip around, and that's it.
Heard that.
So it's really, it's every second matters.
They make
on
up their
the
mind
demo.
quickly.
Yeah, it's big real estate.
Great. I have a follow-up for that question that somebody
Alright.
just presented us with. So a submission has happened, and they've emailed you your demo, and let's just say they have a referral, and they haven't heard anything. Do they resubmit in a few months? Is that too soon? Does that mean you're not interested? What's the proper protocol?
Great question. I mean, I think there's there's a certain component to it that if they're not responding, I think that's the answer. If you responded and you still feel very passionately about that agency and you really think you belong, I think it's totally fine to follow up 6 months after.
6
I-
months,
Okay,
general
6
rule of
months,
thumb.
great.
Then not any sooner than that. I've gotten, I'm sure you've gotten them too. Hey, I sent my voiceover demo 2 days ago. What do you think? And it's 2 days ago feels like 2 hours ago in my life.
Being that
So,
persistent might work against you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You're kind of walking the fine line between proactive and
Right,
being
Craig?
a little too eager beaver.
Yeah.
We did take on a client about maybe 2 years ago who had submitted about 1.5 years prior. And it's just, for whatever reason, the timing was right.
That's good to know.
That's a possibility. It could happen.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is another one that just came in. I have had agents tell me they already have my voiceover type. Do you resist signing talent that may sound similar to other talent on your roster? Is that a real thing?
I mean, I like to think that no two people sound truly exactly the same, that you would offer a certain different, but if there is that, kind of carryover, I mean, you kind of going back to the reality is there are limits on some auditions. We can only submit our top 10 or 12.
Right.
And so, we kind of have to bring the cornucopia and not necessarily sign people that all sound the same and so I do think there's truth to that. Yeah.
There is. We don't want to overstack in one particular category. My mentor used to say, and maybe this is a dated, you represent Orson Welles. If another Orson Welles walks into your office, you're going to rep him too. So it depends on what the person brings to the party.
Right. Makes sense. So,
That's good.
that is
I might
good.
use
More
that.
merch.
Exactly.
So, for your roster, what is something that your Barbie dream talent does? Who are your best people and why do you love them? In addition to them having fabulous voices, what makes them spectacular?
Improv chops is one of the best.
Okay.
An awareness of who they are. It's a difficult thing for an actor to have, really, because as an actor, you're always wearing different hats and doing different things. So to be able to hone in on what your core truth is.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. It's your uniqueness, your authenticity, your passion, all of those things are great. But again, I go back to the business side of it and making sure that if I'm calling you, you call me back, hey, did you leave a voicemail? Yeah, I left a pretty detailed one. Thanks for listening. Things like that. If I'm emailing you and checking your avails or whatever for certain dates, would love it if you emailed me the same day. Just keeping, again, going back to communication, so important. keeping those lines of communication open with your agency, booking out. I'm sure you've been there too, where you flash on somebody for a project, you call the casting director, you're like, oh my God, you need to see Wendy for this. She is perfect. I don't know anyone else who could book this job for you. Please see her. Great, here's the time. You call, I'm in Vancouver, I forgot to book out, sorry. And you're like, wow, that hurts a little bit, that hurts. Yeah. So again, obviously there are things that are so out of your control that, that happen, life happens. But again, communication, so important.
Prompt responses are appreciated.
Yes. And because commercials move so quickly,
right.
There is really, what I've sort of in my experience, what I've learned is that the window for when the commercial is shot and the voiceover needs to be recorded and the commercial has to ship is like this. Mm-hmm. It's so itty bitty that it moves so quickly that you need to be on the train or off the train.
Yeah.
Ferenc mentioned earlier about not wanting to track down auditions in the beginning of the day, and getting auditions in promptly is so important. I can't tell you how many times we've had more time to work on a project. Maybe the project comes in on Monday, it's due on Wednesday. We audition the people that we can get a hold of on Monday, upload them. We have another person coming in to audition Tuesday morning, and we get an email, already cast. So returning those calls and turning around auditions quickly is important.
Is there merit to, I've heard that the people that submit first, you'll send them to casting first, and if they find the person, is there merit to being that early bird?
That's a good question. So it really depends on the medium. Animation, interactive, there's more time.
More forgiving in those rounds.
Yeah, because they're probably, in their minds, they're collecting everything all at once. Mm-hmm. And then, if it's going through a casting director, then they're narrowing it and then sending that off. So it's not, early bird doesn't get the worm in that situation. In commercial, it's totally different because you don't know when the creative director on the spot or whoever, the account executive's like, client just changed the deadline, this needs to ship tomorrow, who do we have, what auditions do we have up, like who's already submitted. So then that is the early bird gets the worm situation.
Yeah, and all those variables are so out of our control.
Right. So
we might not even be privy to them.
So you do want to, do want to turn it in.
Absolutely.
If you're getting it, you got to turn it around the same day almost. There's really no time.
I appreciate what you said, Ferenc, about it being a little bit different in the interactive and animation realms, because sometimes you need to work on those scripts a little longer.
Yes.
It's not just choosy mothers choose GIF. There's some meat to it. So take the time to learn the character and learn the material.
Great. So another question for you from audience member. What should I expect from my agent, and what do you expect from me?
Goodness. These are great questions, by the way. So I kind of go back to the, 10%, 90%. The agencies take 10% of what you guys make. You guys are 90% of it, though. So that really, that kind of, with saying that, the idea is that you guys are, doing the heavy lifting. You guys are in there. You guys are the ones having to drive to Santa Monica at 5 o'clock on a Friday, which is brutal, but it happens. I and where I'm at SBV, and again how passionate I am about this industry. For the most part, this isn't a side job for me. This isn't my side hustle. This is what I do. I love this, and so I expect that you also share the same love that I have for this industry, and you're passionate about it.
And level of commitment.
And the commitment that comes with that. I understand if you're working theatrically. Again, we're not going to hold that against you. That's great. That helps. That helps your voiceover. But if you're just completely checked out, and it's like, hey, we got this audition. You're not turning in your auditions. That's really hard. And I know it's hard to believe, right? People not turning in their auditions. It happens. It happens quite a bit.
Even when they're client requested.
Yeah, even when they're requested, they're like, hey, the producer wants to hear you, and it doesn't happen. And you're like, how, what? It's kind of, so, going back to my big point, communication, and, making sure that you're well-trained, that you're studying the trends, that you're working out your voiceover acting skills, because it's really not just voiceover, it's voice acting. That's really what this is. The stage is just right here. So that for me is kind of those are the big things. If you're treating this like your side job, like if you're putting events, publicity events for things that don't really relate above what I do, I'm gonna have an issue with that because I don't do that. So that's sort of where I come from.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with everything Ferenc said. In terms of what you should expect from your agent, to be able to communicate with them, for them to make a little time out of their day to help you if you have a question or consideration. But what we expect from our talent is professionalism in terms of the business aspect, a strong work ethic.
Right. It's a little dark, but I want to ask a question because you've kind of touched on some things that are not so savory that some of your talent does at different points. What merits being dropped from an agency?
Ooh.
Not responding to
Yeah, but I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's like people that have kind of just checked out, because voiceover is such a niche part of this industry, and I wish it were different, but we just do not get any feedback ever. You could be, especially in commercial, you could be the second choice or maybe even the first choice for most of it, and then the client picks the second person.
Yeah.
And that's happened, and we don't ever hear about it until after the fact, and then someone, the cast director or something says, hey, by the way, this person was, hey, just want to let you know, this person was the second runner-up, but they didn't get it, so sorry, and that's just, there's no feedback in voiceover. So you kind of have blinders on. You're trying to navigate this industry that's very niche. You see some people work on it all the time, so kind of keeping up with the trend. Again, going back to the trends of the communication and keep the lines open, all those touchstones, getting dropped. I mean, it's such a touchy, personal subject.
It is. It's never really an instance of personality.
Honestly, one of the worst parts of this. I mean, talk about the passionate, the side that I love about it, getting to see you guys do your thing in your element, and then the not so beautiful side of it, which is when the relationship isn't working, and you're frustrated. If you're feeling frustrated, we're probably feeling frustrated too.
And carrying a little bit of the responsibility too if we're not able to successfully service our client for whatever reason,
Right. So it truly is a personal, like a personal
situation.
It's totally case by case.
Got it.
And never easy.
Yes.
Never
gosh.
easy, of course.
Never.
Okay, great. So for performers without representation, do you have any recommendations on how they can find voiceover postings, or is having an agent really the only way to compete for most voiceover jobs?
Well, you want to work on union projects, ideally. That's what you're aspiring to, is to be a member of the union so that you get the benefits of it, pension, health, welfare. But a lot of voice actors maybe don't have access to union jobs without the benefit of representation. There are other avenues out there, Backstage West or some websites, but we don't really personally advocate for going to those because it's detracting and pulling away from union work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, being here today is step one for some of you perhaps, but that's great. This is good. This is part of it. Is participating in these kind of workshops with the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, studying with the casting directors. There's really, it's very easy to kind of see who the players are in this industry. There's really just about 5 to 10, that you could probably research online, but it is those kind of networking events I think are really important because you never know who you're going to meet, and this person, that person. I don't know. I have not been on the pay-to-play sites, so I kind of go back to what Larry said. I don't necessarily know that scene too well, but I know that some people are up there and they're procuring work, and it's your kind of choice.
Yep. Okay, great.
But definitely SAG-AFTRA.
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 And also, you guys are all here, so I'm preaching to the choir, but the Voiceover Lab offers amazing workshops and classes with unbelievable working directors and performers and artists and loop groups. And yeah, it's such an incredible resource for us. So we need to make use of that as much as possible.
Yeah, an important thing that Ferenc mentioned is that networking is so important. And while we don't suggest that our talent take classes with any one particular company or place, if you can get some training from some place that maybe somewhere down the line would be in a position to afford you an opportunity, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing.
Right. Great. Okay, do either one of you ever work directly with advertising agencies seeking voiceover talent for the campaigns that they produce, or are casting directors usually the intermediary in that part of the process?
I work every day with ad agencies across the globe, really. The cast directors do get great projects, and we've had Larry and I were talking about this. We had a disruption in our voiceover industry with the elimination of VoiceBank, which was our main, that was the website. It was our breakdown express.
Clearinghouse of sorts.
Yes, it was the site. And so there's now many websites and many copycat websites, casting websites. And I think that trend has actually boosted the cast directors, because now they've been able to kind of channel those projects, and so they will work on some really great ones, really good, nice commercial gigs. And then we're seeing now too that the on-camera cast directors are starting to work on voiceover as well. Yeah. So having even if you're familiar with a certain on-camera casting office, making sure that they know that you do voiceover too kind of can help help the cause. Yeah. So it is, I would say for the more intricate campaigns, I think those probably end up going to the casting directors a lot more. That's not to say that we haven't worked on
that. Was the point I was going to make,
yeah.
is that casting directors tend to get campaigns or the higher profile because they charge a rather absorbent fee to do their casting service, but what the advertising agency gets is a narrower base of submissions, so they have 15, 25 people to listen to rather than 250. We work with advertising agencies all the time, but even that landscape is changing, where in 10, 15 years ago, a lot of advertising agencies had broadcast production departments, and nowadays many broadcast producers work freelance and just bounce from different places and get the jobs as catch can, But we still do maintain those relationships and talk with them on a daily basis, yeah.
Right. So we have a few questions kind of circling around this. I'm going to see if I can Reader's Digest it. Do you have any talent that is not local, so anywhere in the U.S.? And also, if you have more than one agent for different regions, how is the working relationship kind of affected with you guys, and is that even a thing?
We're a little selfish about it. In our agency, we do have clients that have representation in other cities, and we just ask them to check with us before they submit to another agent, do we have that project? And we do have certain clients that are out of state as well, but most of them are people who are working jobs or were LA-based and then moved to New York, and we wanted to maintain the relationship because they're on an animated series or something like that.
Got it.
Typically, we only work with talent that are LA-based, and that's because for the animation projects, by and large, they are going to want to see you in their office. They're not going to want to record you remotely.
Would you say that that's true of animation and less so of every other part of the industry?
Less so for commercials.
Okay.
True to a certain degree for interactive.
Got it.
I agree with all that. It's we do have clients across the globe, really, and thank God for technology. It's really just makes it so easy. It's almost like they're here. It does. There are certain projects and certain casting houses or certain ad agencies you need to be in LA, and that's it. They will not patch or they will not connect with any other place. They want you at Lime, Santa Monica, and that's it. The animation scene is here in LA. So if animation is what you want to do in your career, You need to be okay with, if you're living in another state, you got to be okay with flying in for callbacks and making that work, because that's usually how the animation process works. They don't just offer the job after you read it, although that happens sometimes. But if you're looking for those like series regular roles, you're going to be coming in for callbacks. You're going to be flying in. So, get a good American Airlines credit card or something. You're going to be racking up points.
Yeah.
I think that's
Great. Are there any emerging categories of voiceover that we should know about and be paying attention to?
Again, really good questions.
They are. We talked about, in the green room, we talked about podcasts.
Yep, we
We're
did.
seeing a lot more of that happening, and it's
Yeah.
being governed by the union, thank heaven. They still need to iron out, the rates a bit, but there's more and more of that happening. Story-based podcasts.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, podcasts are popping. I think it looks like the interactive field is really, I know that there was a strike, but since then it seems like it's really seems, much more, I guess, accessible to book like an interactive, like a interactive job before you even book like a commercial job.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to book interactive these days than it is commercial.
So would you say that the most amount of work exists in interactive right now?
I'd have to look at the data. I probably pound for pound it's still commercials.
Okay.
But because commercials are just so competitive,
Yeah.
and they're listening to like easily 200 people on any given thing.
And unfortunately, some of them are moving away from the union.
There is, unfortunately, voiceover specifically, I think, is susceptible to non-union because, it's voiceover and they don't see you on on camera, so you can kind of, there's a lot more, unfortunately, it's so hard to see when you do see a project that goes non-union or an account that, once was, lively and beautiful and they're like, hey, we're gonna have to go non-union. You're like, why? Don't, please, and that's just so out of our control, unfortunately, but that's sort of that's like a bigger ecosystem problem, and we don't have the time to talk about it today. So.
Great, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think to wrap it up, I want to ask both of you guys, what has been a career highlight for you and why? If you could choose one, or maybe two, something super yummy.
Super yummy. I mean, my trajectory has been so interesting because I was only really in the mailroom for like maybe 6 months, and then I became an agent after being an assistant for less, like a 9-month period or something like that. It was ridiculous. And so I remember having to work late nights, at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, just thinking like, maybe one day, I won't have to be, it used to be a one-man show. I'd have to record, edit, send everything, interface, negotiate the deals. And, I definitely remember thinking, in those like late nights going like, man, wouldn't it be awesome to have a client like on a Comic-Con panel? Like, wouldn't that just be? And so eventually, fast forward maybe like 3 years, I would say, of intense hard work and lots of Xanax, I finally was able to go to Comic-Con with a client who was on a big, Lucasfilm project, and just getting to see him on the stage and getting to interact in all the interviews and being, taken around like, Escalade style. It was just like, and then being welcomed to the Disney Lucasfilm family. It was just, that was so surreal. That was just like, I can't, I just didn't think that moment would happen in the way that it did. So
That's super yummy.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of them. I'm sure there's, oh gosh.
Of course.
Yeah, tons.
Yeah, as a lifelong fan of Star Wars, that's been one of the highlights of my career too, is getting to work on all the Lucasfilm projects and all the fun stuff they do. I haven't gotten to go up to the Skywalker Ranch yet, but I'd like to someday.
Yes.
Our clients get to go on retreats there, and there's
that's
like a
so
vineyard
cool.
there. It's a pretty
Yeah.
great organization. So as an agent, just getting to work on the different projects that I loved as a kid, be them animated or in video games. And plus, and as a booth director, just getting to work with amazing talent,
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless of what their status is. Just seeing them bring life to something and creating, seeing those words just come off the page and
Yeah.
become a living, breathing thing. It's very satisfying. Yeah.
I love that. I lied. I have one more question.
I forgive you.
Thank you. What's something that you wish actors understood better about what it is that you guys do?
Agents are people too.
Mm-hmm.
Put that on a shirt.
Yep.
I really, I think the way the industry is changing. There's definitely more opportunity out there. It's just people are working for less. That's just everyone's working harder for less. That is sort of the kind of the mantra. There are a lot of projects still out there. Unfortunately, they're just not all super well paying, and that's sort of like, I think, one of the, I get the call sometimes of where's my career? Like, what happened? And, the non-union thing, unfortunately, has gobbled a lot of the really good ones up. But there is still like a lot of, there's still a lot of work to be done. So it's just, we're kind of in that, and you see that with the streaming. It's not just voiceover, it's the streaming services. It's, like every day I see like a new streaming show and I'm like, oh my God, I can't keep up. Like these are all my, Netflix and Hulu and everybody. So it's kind of like, I think a thing that's going around where it's like everybody is working harder for less. There's opportunity out there. It's just, it's competitive. Everybody's gunning for it all the time. And, you just have to be okay with that sort of process, being in this industry.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is that sometimes our clients don't realize how much we are working and how much we're doing. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that they would never be aware of, in terms of pitching or just talking to casting directors, trying to get more information from them, trying to beat our way in to get an audition because someone else at another agency found out about it and we didn't get this. So occasionally, we all basically work on all the same things, but every once in a while, one particular agency will be sent something because they want someone at their house to read it.
Yeah.
And sometimes things get out and they hear about it. So there's a lot of legwork that goes on before those auditions actually get to your inbox.
Yeah. Great. All right, we got two more. Cool?
Works for me, yeah.
Great. How do you normally receive your submissions? Do you prefer digital link, website link, SoundCloud? Is there a preference? What is the best and easiest for you?
Whatever format it is to easily share with my colleagues,
Right.
Like if they have to download something, it's like, no.
An email attachment might be better than a link.
Yes, email attachment might be better, yes, because again, you
Extra
got
step.
to make it easy. Got to make it, there's limited time. It's got to be efficient.
Great.
Not many people submit hard copy CDs anymore. There was a time when people put a lot of effort into marketing and branding themselves, and we don't see that as much. Maybe it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Is a website necessary?
If you got stuff to put on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice having that interface to be like, my website has my commercial demo and my on-camera demos, and having that is great, but lots of people don't. Our SBV has like our own profile pages for all of our talent.
Yeah, both of us do.
So we kind of have like your website, kind of built into it too. So if you don't have one, we kind of have it. So
And that suffices.
yeah, and I think all the agencies, all of our people do it.
Great. This has been so informative. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of merch to make.
We got a lot of merchandise,
We got
I know,
busy,
right?
Yeah. Thanks, Ferenc and
you.
Larry, so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.